Go.
We're here because Mr. Harry Momi donated the last picture taken of Ernie Pyle alive. He took it himself on the evening of April 17th, 1945, and we're honored that he thought of us to send a copy of the picture, and we're doubly honored to have you here, Mr. Momi. Thank you very much.
Glad to be here. This is an honor for me.
Well, it's an honor for us. My name is Phil Hess. I'm Vice President of the Friends of Ernie Pyle, and I've been with the Ernie Pyle Museum for 20 years, and my mother for 40 years. Amazing. So we have a long connection with the museum.
Hope to tell you.
I'd like to ask you first about your experience when you met Ernie Pyle. When did you join the 77th Division?
Joined the 77th Division in Camp Pickett, Virginia. In 1943 or 44 it was, because I was overseas for over 2 years.
My gosh.
And I joined we call it the Statue of Liberty, the 77th Infantry Division. And that's when I joined. And from there we went to Camp Stoneman, California, which is 40 miles away from my hometown, and then we went overseas. And
so you were with the 77th the whole time.
The whole time, all through the. I think we fought on 5 different islands.
You were with the 305th Infantry.
305th Infantry Division.
Tank Company.
Cannon Company.
The Cannon Company.
305th Infantry Cannon Company. There was, each regiment had a cannon company, and there's only 3 tanks to a regiment, and I had one, and
those were the M8s.
The M8s.
They were a light tank, a Stuart tank.
No, it had a turret, but open. There's nothing, no cap.
Right.
It was open.
Kind of like a howitzer tank, or self-propelled howitzer now.
Yeah.
But they were on a light frame. They were a Stuart with a 75 millimeter gun.
Right.
No machine gun except
no
on the
machine
top.
gun. No firepower. The only firepower we had is that cannon. That was all.
Was the 75 millimeter? Was it a short-barreled cannon?
Short barrel.
So you were close in support.
We were in there.
You had to be.
They loved us because the infantrymen, the infantry, they would walk beside it and hide behind us and all that stuff.
Well, they would be taking care of you because you were taking care of them.
Both ways. It worked both ways.
Oh yeah, you would have been drawn attention, but
no, I was right in there, because when you take a small cannon, they want us up there, up front.
And with the short barrel and the 75 millimeter, you had to be looking at what you were shooting at.
We had to. Yes.
Now, what was your job in the tank?
I was the tank commander. I was the gunner. I was the gunner. There's only 3 men to a tank: the driver, the loader, and myself, which we call. And I was it. I did the shooting.
So, you went through Guam and Leyte, Ipil, Ormoc, Valencia.
The islands we fought on first was Guam. Mm-hmm. Then we went out to Leyte from Guam, and Leyte we hit it on one side of the island and went around and hit it on the other side of the island. So we boxed them in. And from there we went to the Coromaretto Islands, and that's when we confiscated how many thousands of suicide boats. They were prepared for us for suicide boats, and from there we went to Aishima, and that's the island next to Okinawa.
Right.
It's a little island, and that's where I met Ernie Pyle. And then from there I went over to Okinawa, and then we fought on Okinawa after that. After we secured Aishima, we went to Okinawa from there.
Well, the fighting on Ishima was bad.
Bad. Let me tell you, it was full of these detonators all through there. You had to be careful how you went with the tank, because they had implanted, it blow up your tank. Now you have to excuse me, man. 3 years ago I had what they call a slight stroke, and you lose part of your vocabulary. So sometimes I'll stutter.
So you're doing great.
So I want you to understand that. And then I'm at 90. I'm going to be 91 pretty soon. So I'll do my best for you.
This is the 70th anniversary today of Ernie Pyle's death. So you were 20, just
I was 20 years old. I was 20 years old at the time and a tank commander. And people ask if you want to know how Ernie Pyle got killed. Do you want to know that?
Sure.
Okay. May I just excuse myself a minute? Just to stop it, and then I'll go up. I want to show you the book. Just a minute. It's a 77 campaign book. And I got this right after the war. Mm-hmm. So this is about 70 years old also. But I want you to just kind of big, like, this is the true story right here, how Ernie Pyle got killed. This, all from there to there is all about Ernie Pyle. And all this is about Ernie Pyle. So anybody that wants to know the real reason, and this, you can read this here, and it'll tell you exactly how he died and where he died.
We'll make copies and keep this in our archive.
Okay, you guys. And I told them they can keep that book and they can send it to me if
we can make copies pretty fast. We'll get them today.
Okay, but
what did you know about Ernie Pyle already?
The only thing I don't. Let me tell you. So when we come back from the front, we parked our tanks alongside the road. See. When you fight the Japs, you don't fight them at night because they're too sneaky. You know, they sneak up on you. They really do. And so everything shuts down and we dig in. And then we went back with like the front there, and we went back a little ways and we parked the tanks. And after I parked the tank, I waited, walking around, and I seen some guys talking to the guy. I says, "Hey, what's happening over there?" And he says, "Well, they're talking to Ernie Pyle." I says, "Hold the phone." Good. I went over there. I introduced myself to Ernie. I says, "Ernie, can you do me a favor?" He says, "Sure." We talked for a while, and I says, would you believe I have an old box camera in my tank, and I would like to take a picture of you on top of my tank. He says, "You're welcome to do that." Sure. And sure enough, she says, "Let me get up on the tank with everything." He got up on the tank, and I got my camera, the old box camera. Now this, we're talking 70 years ago on the camera now.
Was it a Brownie?
Huh?
Was it a Brownie?
You got me. So it was, hey, 70 years ago, I can't even remember yesterday sometimes. Anyway, I got this camera, this box camera, and I had film in it. I says, "Okay, I do have film in this thing." He says, "Okay." So he up on top and he says, "How's this?" And I says, "Perfect." He says, "Oh no!" All the guys were around there watching me, and I snapped the pictures of them. And you have the original picture, the little one.
Yes.
That and then I took that little picture, and I went to a friend of mine, is a photographer, Fritz Chin, and he's sharp. And I says, "Hey, can you blow this up to 8 by 10? And he looked at it. He says, "Man, where'd you get this?" You know. And I said, "About the camera." He says, "You know, in them days, that box camera was the camera at that time, and it had a little moisture on it." And he says, "Let me see what I can do." And the picture that you see now, that you have in there, he did. He did a beautiful job on it, and so that's how I got the picture of Ernie Pyle blown up from that little from that little photo that I have of him.
Yep. Did you take a lot of pictures while you were there?
Well, not now, because this is getting dark now.
Yeah.
See? And he had to go back with our lieutenant, and so she says, I got to break it up, man. Okay. Well, so we shook hands and everything, and I says, like, who'd ever think the very next morning, like in this book, he's going up to the front, because that's the way he was, and it was early in the morning, and then that's when he encountered them. I told you that them guys are sneaky. Who'd ever think they would be back that far from back. Well, they were always hiding, and they had a machine gun, and that's when they they used the machine gun, and they were right in the Jeep, and they jumped out of the Jeep. It'll stay right in there. They jumped out of the Jeep, and they hit the side of the road to get out of the way.
Yeah. And then Ernie was in the Jeep with your regimental commander, Colonel Coolidge and Major Pratt.
Yeah. He with him, and he's from headquarters.
Right. Ernie had slept the evening before. After you'd taken the picture, he'd slept in a Japanese dugout, and then got up the next morning to ride with your colonel and major.
He was one of the boys. Hey, where do we sleep? You sleep right here, Ernie.
So this was the last picture of Ernie taken alive. Lee Miller
these were, nobody ever come forward that these aren't the last pictures. That these are the last pictures of him alive, and it'll prove it right in through here too, because he was killed very next morning going up there.
As I understand it, about 10 o'clock.
It was in the morning sometime. Yeah. It was in the morning. I know that.
Yeah.
And when they in here you read about, and then both of them looked up to see what happened.
That's right.
And sure enough, he did it again. And that's when he looked. The officer looked at Ernie, and you could see that hit him right in the head. But that's all I know is about the one bullet. Right. I don't know any more.
Okay. Well, the last picture that Lee Miller, Ernie's biographer, knew of was taken early in the morning when he came ashore at Red Beach 2 on Ishima with the 306th. And, that was in the morning, so yours was at least 12 hours later. And Ernie and Colonel Coolidge and all of them made it to the ditch just fine. And Ernie knew better, but he and Colonel Coolidge both raised their heads, and Ernie said, "Is everybody okay?" And that's when they got him. I understand, too, that you'd been wounded. You want to tell about that?
About?
You being wounded.
I've been wounded, yeah, on Ishima there. Because the only time you look at a periscope and you look around, sometimes you can't see to it. You have to, so you look up, because it was open turret. And when you look up like this, you never know what's going to happen. Sure enough, you're getting hit. I got hit. And
a very close call.
A very close call.
Hit you in the eyebrow.
Took the whole eyebrow and everything right off me. He hit and knocked me on my butt. Knocked me on my butt.
Did you get to go back to the aid station and stay for a while?
No, I said, heck no, I'm okay. We passed it up, and I said, I'm staying here. I stayed there. I didn't go back. I stayed there. I was bleeding and everything, but I was...
Well, after Ishima, which was bad, the battle for the government house and the Bloody Ridge, were you involved with those two?
Now, what is it?
On Ishima.
On Ishima.
Government house.
Yeah, we were 305th was really involved. My regiment was really involved. Yeah, we've been invited, and that's probably we're talking 70 years ago, and you think you might remember stuff. A lot of times you forget a lot of stuff, but I did that. I was fighting right. Ernie would, if Ernie was still alive, he'd be right up there with us. That's the way he was.
Did you know about Ernie Pyle from before? When did you know about him?
He over on the other side, on the Atlantic side. Well, he was the man. He was noted then. Everybody knew about Ernie Pyle because he was everybody's buddy, and when he went with a regiment, he's always with the infantry. He wasn't back there in headquarters. He's always with the infantry. And when you get a guy like him, and he's right up there with you, you think he's one of the soldiers. He'd be right there with you guys. And that's the way.
So
he
even
was.
as young as you were, you knew that. You were 19 and 20 at the time, and you knew all about Ernie Pyle.
We knew Ernie before he even come over to the Pacific side.
Wow. Well, that's great.
Yeah, he was well known then. Everybody knew about Ernie Pyle.
So after the Ishima, you guys were pulled back to Cebu Island and getting ready for Operation Olympic, to the invasion of the Japanese islands.
They showed us where we after Okinawa. From Ishima, when we finished Ishima, we moved over to Okinawa, and we fought on Okinawa.
Yeah.
And then from Okinawa we went back to Cebu, and that's when the war ended.
In between, before Ishima, were you on some of the ships that were attacked by the kamikazes?
No, but my just a minute, let me show you something. Where's Colonel Tenzo? Okay. Here's some suicide boats.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot. Anywhere, our colonel, the ship, when a ship was hit with
kamikaze.
With one of them suicide kamikaze, it hit right in where all the officers were, and right in the middle, and our officer, our colonel, was killed. Our colonel was killed, and a bunch of them were killed. And Nelson Rockefeller was one of our officers, and he survived it. And he's the one that he finally ended up being a governor of Arkansas or something.
Vice president, wasn't he? Was he Secretary of State or Vice President? Nelson Rockefeller.
I know, and Winthrop Rockefeller, this was. Winthrop. He was Winthrop. He got to be governor of Arkansas, and he was one of our officers. He survived. He survived that bombing.
Yes.
He did right in there. God. And
really lucky though that you didn't have to do invasion.
No, he was on another ship.
Right. Lucky though that you didn't have to go through with that Operation Olympic, which was the invasion of the Japanese islands.
No, we didn't. They showed us where we were going to hit, right in the middle.
I'd like to say though, we're honored at your service too. He was right in the front lines, right with the infantry, and his division suffered half killed or seriously wounded. Half his division was killed.
You can go through this book and it'll tell you how many got killed and how many we killed and so forth.
Over 7,400 were killed and wounded in your division alone. Let's talk about your life then after the war. You came back and played for the farm teams for the St. Louis Browns?
St. Louis Browns. I played for the farm team 2 years, and then I knew that when you have a weak arm, you're only going to go so far and small. Now we look at guys, they're all 6 foot and bigger. We were 5'8", and 5'9", 5'10". If we were 6 foot, we were a giant.
What position did you play?
I played shortstop and in the outfield.
So did you get $44 million a year like some of these new guys?
Wouldn't that have been nice? Lucky if we made $150 a month. that was at 150, 200, 300. That you're talking hundreds then.
And I understand you're 90 now and still playing ball.
Still playing baseball. Still work 5 days a week. Love it.
And been with Chevy most of your civilian work
Yes.
life?
Since 1960.
And always in California and stuff?
Always in California. I had my own place for 23 years, and I was going to retire, and the Chevrolet company unretired me, and I've been there ever since.
Wow,
and
that's
I
great.
love it.
Well, that's great. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I just want to say that I'm really honored that you asked me would I like to come.
Well,
and I says, that let me talk about it. And talked about it to my family, and they says, you got to go. You got to go. And then I says, I had my ticket already done, and my kid came over to here. He says, I'm going with you. And I says, I already got my ticket. He says, I'm going with you. We're going to revise that ticket. We're going to revise that ticket. And so, and that's what he did. He says, I'm going with you. You've been talking about Ernie Pyle since I was a kid. And he says, and I want to be there. And I'm glad he did come, because it's just, we left at 10 o'clock and we got here at 1:45. So it was a long shift. Yeah, but it was well worth it. This place is awesome, and I can see the farmlands here are beautiful, because that's where I come from. I come from where row crops were cherries, walnuts, and wheat and stuff like that come from. Pomegranates are getting popular now, and my son, he's a diesel mechanic, and he's a good one. And he's a good boy.
we need a lot of those, and they're high priced around here.
He's a super kid.
Well, our museum is honored by your gift. We're grateful for thinking of us, and we're doubly grateful that you came.
Well,
I hope you enjoy the day. I hope you're not disappointed in any part of it.
I'm sure I would. I won't be.
Thank you very much.
Just being here, man. Just being here is something. I look around. This is only the start. I look around. I see this beautiful farmland out here, and I says, man, this is something people don't realize. What you people have out here, even though you're out in boondocks. They call the boondocks, but it's beautiful.
Well, it's like we've always said, we've got a wonderful museum for Ernie Pyle and Dana, but nobody comes to Dana by accident. You have to come on purpose to get here.
Right, we should too. I can see that now.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad to be here. That's all I can say.
Thanks, Leonard.
And thank you very much for interviewing.